In a quiet little town surrounded by rolling hills, life moved at its own unhurried pace. The streets were lined with small shops, cozy houses, and the faint hum of everyday activity. Among the residents was Mr. Alvarez, a kind-hearted man in his late 40s who worked as a janitor at the local community center. His job wasn't glamorous, but he took pride in keeping the place spotless for everyone to enjoy. Every evening after school, his 14-year-old daughter Sophia would join him to help mop floors, empty trash bins, and tidy up meeting rooms. Though their days were long and tiring, they always found joy in each other's company. Sophia was different from most kids her age. While others spent their free time chatting with friends or scrolling through phones, she loved listening to music. She'd often pause mid-task just to close her eyes and let the melodies wash over her. Whether it was the soft piano notes drifting out of someone's window or the lively tunes played during festivals, music seemed to speak directly to her soul. But there was one thing missing. She had never held an instrument in her hands, let alone learned how to play one. Their family simply couldn't afford luxuries like lessons or even a second-hand guitar. One chilly afternoon, while Sophia swept the floor of the recital hall, a group of students gathered nearby to rehearse for an upcoming concert. They came from wealthy families, dressed in designer clothes, carrying expensive violins and cellos. As they tuned their instruments and practiced scales, their laughter filled the air. At first, Sophia tried not to pay attention, focusing instead on sweeping under the chairs. But then she heard something that made her stop dead in her tracks. One of the girls, flipping her shiny blonde hair, turned to her friends and said, "You know what? Maybe we should tell the janitor's daughter to try playing violin. I mean, why not? It could be funny." The comment stung more than Sophia cared to admit. Her cheeks burned as she gripped the broom handle tightly, pretending not to hear. The others laughed along, clearly amused by the idea. "Yeah?" Another chimed in, like she'd even know which end is up. Their giggles echoed off the walls, sharp and cutting. For a moment, Sophia felt tears welling up in her eyes. How dare they laugh at her? Didn't they realize how hard she and her dad worked every single day? But as quickly as the hurt came, it transformed into something else. Determination. Sophia squared her shoulders and continued sweeping, her mind racing. If they thought she couldn't do it, fine. Let them think whatever they wanted. But deep down, she knew she wouldn't let their cruel words define her. Instead, she decided, right then and there, that she would show them, and herself, that she was capable of far more than they imagined. That night, as Sophia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the memory of their laughter still lingered. But alongside it was a flicker of hope. What if she really could learn to play? What if she proved them all wrong? Little did anyone know, this seemingly insignificant moment would set the stage for a journey no one, not even Sophia, could have anticipated. That very night, unable to shake off the sting of the students' mocking remarks, Sophia found herself restless. She tossed and turned in bed, replaying their laughter over and over in her mind. But instead of letting it crush her spirit, she felt an unfamiliar fire burning inside her. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was determination. "If they think I can't do it," she whispered to herself in the dark, "then I'll show them I can." With that thought firmly planted in her heart, Sophia slipped out of bed and quietly made her way back to the community center. The building was eerily quiet at night, the usual bustle replaced by long shadows and the faint creak of floorboards beneath her feet. Sophia crept into the recital hall where earlier that day the wealthy students had laughed at her expense. She glanced around the room, her eyes landing on a dusty storage closet tucked away in the corner. Curiosity tugged at her, and she opened the door, revealing shelves cluttered with forgotten items, old sheet music, broken stands, and a few battered instruments. Nestled among them was a violin, its surface scratched and worn, but still intact. Sophia picked it up carefully, running her fingers along its smooth wooden body. Though she'd never touched a violin before, something about holding it felt right. Her hands trembled slightly as she plucked one of the strings, producing a soft, hesitant note. The sound was faint, almost shy, but it sparked something. Within her, a sense of possibility. She knew nothing about playing, but she also knew she couldn't just give up without trying. Carefully wrapping the violin in an old cloth, she took it home, determined to learn everything she could. Back in her tiny bedroom, Sophia spent hours poring over free online tutorials on her phone. At first, even holding the bow correctly seemed impossible. Her fingers fumbled awkwardly, and the screeching sounds she produced were enough to make her wince. Neighbors occasionally knocked on the wall, yelling for her to keep it down, but Sophia didn't care. She practiced late into the night, her fingertips blistering from pressing too hard on the strings. Each failed attempt only fueled her resolve. "I won't stop," she muttered to herself after yet another ear-piercing squeak. "Not until I get it right." Her father, Mr. Alvarez, noticed the change in his daughter almost immediately. He often heard her practicing while he worked extra shifts to make ends meet. One evening, as he walked past her room, he paused to listen. The notes were far from perfect, but there was something raw and honest in the way she played. Moved by her dedication, he decided to support her however he could. Though money was tight, he scraped together enough to buy her new strings and rosin, small gestures that meant the world to Sophia. As days turned into weeks, Sophia began to see glimpses of progress. Her once jarring notes started to blend into simple melodies, shaky but recognizable. She played during breaks at the community center, hiding in empty corners so no one would hear her mistakes. Music became her secret sanctuary, a place where she could pour all her emotions, channeling both her pain and her dreams into every stroke of the bow. Slowly but surely, Sophia realized she wasn't just learning to play the violin. She was discovering a part of herself she never knew existed. Though she still had a long way to go, Sophia's confidence grew with each passing day. She imagined the faces of those students who had laughed at her. If only they could see her now. But more importantly, she dreamed of the moment when she'd step onto a stage, not to prove anything to them, but to share the beauty of music with the world. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning, and the impact of her determination would soon ripple far beyond what she ever imagined. Weeks turned into months, and Sophia's world revolved around the violin. Every spare moment was dedicated to mastering the instrument that had once seemed so foreign in her hands. Her fingers, now calloused from hours of practice, moved with a newfound confidence across the strings. The screeches and squeaks that once filled her room had given way to gentle, flowing melodies. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but for the first time Sophia could hear music in her playing. And not just any music, but something that felt alive, as if the notes carried pieces of her soul. One evening, after finishing her chores at the community center, Sophia decided to test herself. She stood in the empty recital hall, the same place where the wealthy students had mocked her months ago. The grand piano sat silently in the corner, and the rows of chairs stretched out before her like an audience waiting to be amazed. Taking a deep breath, Sophia raised the violin to her chin and began to play. She chose Vivaldi's Spring, a piece she'd heard countless times in videos but never dared to attempt herself. At first, her bow hesitated, and a few wrong notes slipped through. But then, something magical happened. The melody started to flow naturally, as though the music had been hiding inside her all along, waiting for its chance to shine. When she finished, the silence in the room felt deafening. Sophia lowered the violin, her heart pounding. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would feel like to play in front of people, to share this part of herself with the world. But reality quickly set in. Who would ever take her seriously? She was just the janitor's daughter, the girl who cleaned floors and emptied trash bins. No one would believe she could actually play, let alone perform on stage. Still, the thought lingered, planting a tiny seed of hope in her mind. The next morning, Sophia noticed flyers taped to the bulletin board outside the community center. A charity event was being held in 2 weeks, and there was an open mic segment for anyone brave enough to showcase their talent. Sophia froze, her stomach twisting into knots. Could she really do it? Could she stand in front of an audience and play the violin? The idea terrified her, but deep down, she knew she couldn't let fear hold her back. This was her chance to prove, not to others, but to herself, that she was more than the labels people tried to pin on her. That night, Sophia practiced harder than ever before. She replayed Vivaldi's Spring over and over, focusing on every note, every pause, every swell of emotion. Her father watched from the doorway, his eyes glistening with pride. "You're going to do great, Mija," he said softly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. His words gave her strength, reminding her that no matter what happened, she wasn't alone. Finally, the day of the event arrived. As Sophia walked into the bustling community center, she could feel her nerves bubbling up. The room buzzed with chatter and clusters of people mingled near the refreshment table. When her name was called for the open mic segment, her legs felt like jelly. Clutching her battered violin tightly, she stepped onto the stage. The spotlight blinded her momentarily, and she squinted to see the crowd. Sure enough, some familiar faces were scattered among the audience, the same students who had laughed at her months ago. Their smirks told her they expected another joke, another clumsy attempt at music. But when Sophia raised her violin and began to play, everything changed. The opening notes rang out clear and pure, silencing the murmurs in the room. As the melody unfolded, heads turned, jaws dropped, and whispers faded into awe. Sophia poured every ounce of emotion into her performance. The frustration, the determination, the joy, all of it came pouring out through her bow. By the time she played the final note, the entire room erupted into applause. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, completely captivated by what they had just witnessed. For the first time in her life, Sophia felt seen, not as the janitor's daughter or someone to be mocked, but as a musician, an artist, a dreamer. Tears welled up in her eyes as she took a small bow, her heart swelling with gratitude. In that moment, she realized that the journey wasn't just about proving others wrong. It was about finding her own voice and sharing it with the world. And she was only getting started. The applause that followed Sophia's performance at the charity event was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't just polite clapping or a few scattered cheers. It was thunderous, heartfelt, and full of genuine admiration. People crowded around her after she stepped off the stage, eager to shake her hand, compliment her talent, and ask how long she had been playing. Sophia, still trembling from nerves and excitement, struggled to find the right words. I've only been practicing for a few months," she admitted shyly. The confession left many in awe. How could someone with so little training play with such depth and emotion? Word of Sophia's incredible performance spread like wildfire through the small town. By the next morning, neighbors who barely noticed her before were stopping her on the street to congratulate her. Local newspapers ran stories about the girl who turned a joke into magic, and social media buzzed with videos of her performance. Even teachers at her school, who had previously overlooked her quiet presence, began praising her in front of classmates. For the first time in her life, Sophia felt like she mattered, not because of what she wore or where she came from, but because of something she had created. Among those who reached out to her were wealthy patrons eager to support her musical journey. One couple, moved by her story, offered to sponsor private lessons with a renowned violin instructor from the city. Another donated funds to buy her a brand new instrument, replacing her battered old violin. At first, Sophia hesitated. She didn't want to accept help out of pity or guilt, but when she saw the sincerity in their eyes, she realized they truly believed in her potential. With her father's encouragement, she accepted their offers, knowing this was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. Despite her growing fame, Sophia remained grounded. Every evening after school, she continued helping her father clean the community center, refusing to let success change who she was. Mr. Alvarez watched proudly as his daughter juggled her responsibilities with grace, balancing her passion for music with the values he had instilled in her. "Remember where you came from," he often reminded her gently, "and never forget why you started." However, not everyone celebrated Sophia's success. Some of the same students who had mocked her months ago grew envious of the attention she was receiving. Whispers followed her in the hallways, and snide comments slipped through cracks in conversation. "She probably got lucky." One muttered under their breath during lunch. Or maybe someone helped her fake it. Though these remarks stung, Sophia chose not to engage. She knew jealousy stemmed from insecurity, and responding would only give them power over her. Instead, she focused on her music, letting her progress speak louder than any insult. Her newfound opportunities brought challenges as well. The advanced techniques taught by her new instructor pushed her to her limits, forcing her to confront weaknesses she hadn't realized she had. There were days when frustration overwhelmed her, when her bow refused to glide smoothly or her fingers stumbled over complex passages. But each setback only strengthened her resolve. "You're doing this for yourself," she reminded herself during tough moments, "not for anyone else." As weeks went by, Sophia's confidence soared. She performed at local events, charming audiences with her heartfelt renditions of classical pieces. Each performance felt like a step closer to proving that her dream wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. Yet even as accolades poured in, Sophia kept her sights set on something bigger. She wanted to use her music to inspire others, to show people like her that no obstacle was too great if you believed in yourself. Little did she know, her journey was about to take another unexpected turn. Fame had opened doors she never imagined, but it also brought tests that would challenge her in ways she couldn't foresee. Through it all, Sophia held on to one truth. The same determination that carried her through the hardest moments would guide her forward, no matter what lay ahead. As Sophia's name began to appear in headlines and her performances drew larger crowds, she found herself stepping into a world she had only dreamed of. The once shy girl who swept floors at the community center was now invited to play at prestigious venues, concert halls with velvet seats, sparkling chandeliers, and audiences dressed in formal attire. Each invitation felt like a miracle, but it also came with pressure. Critics whispered behind their notebooks, questioning whether her talent was genuine or just a fleeting trend fueled by her inspiring backstory. Some even suggested that her rise was too fast, too unbelievable to be sustainable. One particular competition loomed large on Sophia's calendar. It was a national event held in the city's grandest concert hall, attended by some of the most respected names in classical music. For weeks leading up to it, Sophia practiced tirelessly, determined to prove that she belonged among the elite musicians. Her instructor pushed her harder than ever, refining every detail of her technique and encouraging her to dig deeper into the emotions behind the music. "This isn't just about skill," he told her one evening after a grueling session. "It's about connecting with your audience. Make them feel what you're feeling." But as the day of the competition approached, Sophia faced an unexpected hurdle. Just hours before she was scheduled to perform, disaster struck. While warming up backstage, she discovered that someone had tampered with her violin. The strings were loosened, and the bridge was slightly warped. Panic surged through her veins. Without her instrument, she wouldn't be able to compete. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as she frantically searched for a solution. A stagehand noticed her distress and quickly offered assistance. "There's another violin in the storage room," he said, guiding her to a dusty case tucked away on a shelf. Inside was an unfamiliar instrument, older and less polished than the one she usually played. Though it wasn't ideal, Sophia knew it was her only option. With trembling hands, she adjusted the bow and tested the strings, praying it would hold up during her performance. When her name was called, Sophia walked onto the stage with her head held high, though her heart raced beneath her chest. The spotlight blinded her momentarily, and the sea of faces in the audience seemed endless. As she raised the borrowed violin to her chin, doubt crept in. Would she stumble? Would the critics' harsh words come true? But then she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She thought about all the nights she'd spent practicing alone in her tiny bedroom, the sacrifices her father had made, and the laughter of those who had doubted her. This moment wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who had believed in her. The first note rang out clear and strong, silencing the murmurs in the hall. Sophia poured every ounce of emotion into her performance, letting the music carry her pain, resilience, and hope. By the time she reached the final crescendo, the entire audience was on their feet, cheering wildly. Critics who had been skeptical of her abilities were left speechless, and rivals who had dismissed her as a novelty bowed their heads in respect. Afterward, reporters swarmed her, eager to hear her story. "How did you stay calm under such pressure?" one asked. Sophia smiled softly, clutching the borrowed violin close. "I remembered why I started," she replied simply, "and I reminded myself that no matter what happens, I'll always have my music." That night, as Sophia lay awake replaying the events in her mind, she realized something profound. The challenges she faced weren't meant to break her. They were meant to shape her. Every obstacle had taught her something valuable, pushing her closer to becoming the musician she was destined to be. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly bring more trials, Sophia knew she was ready to face them, all because she refused to give up when it mattered most. The victory at the national competition marked a turning point in Sophia's life. But it wasn't just about the trophy or the applause. It was the moment she realized her music had the power to transcend boundaries, to touch hearts, bridge divides, and inspire change. As her fame grew, invitations poured in from across the country, gala events, charity fundraisers, even international showcases. Yet, Sophia never lost sight of her roots. She insisted on returning to the community center where it all began, performing for free during local gatherings and mentoring children who reminded her of herself, young dreamers with big ambitions and little means. One evening after a particularly moving performance at a benefit concert, Sophia stood backstage, signing autographs and chatting with fans. A group of teenagers approached her hesitantly, their eyes wide with admiration. "How did you do it?" one of them asked shyly. "You started with nothing, and now, you're amazing." Sophia smiled warmly, remembering how lonely and uncertain she'd felt when she first picked up the violin. "I didn't let fear stop me," she said simply, "and neither should you." But fame came with its own set of challenges. Not everyone celebrated Sophia's success. Some critics argued that her story overshadowed her actual talent, dismissing her achievements as a product of good timing and media hype. Others accused her of being too ambitious, claiming she was forgetting her humble beginnings despite her constant efforts to give back. The negativity weighed on her, especially late at night when the noise of the world seemed loudest. Still, Sophia refused to let it define her. Instead, she channeled those doubts into fuel for her creativity, using her music to respond to her critics without uttering a single word. Her resilience truly shone during a high-profile recital months later. The event was held in a packed auditorium, attended by influential figures in the arts community. Sophia chose to perform Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto, a piece so technically demanding that even seasoned professionals approached it with caution. As she walked onto the stage, whispers rippled through the crowd. Could she really pull this off? Was she biting off more than she could chew? Sophia ignored the murmurs, focusing instead on the melody she had rehearsed tirelessly for weeks. When the orchestra began the introduction, she closed her eyes, letting the music guide her. Her bow danced across the strings with precision and passion, each note resonating deeply with the audience. By the time she reached the final movement, the entire hall was spellbound. The thunderous standing ovation that followed left no room for doubt. Sophia had silenced her critics once and, for all. After the performance, a journalist asked her how she managed to stay grounded amidst the chaos of fame. Sophia thought for a moment before answering. "It's not about me," she said earnestly. "Every time I play, I think about my dad, who worked so hard to give me opportunities. I think about the kids I meet who need someone to believe in, them. And I think about the people who laughed at me. They taught me to fight for my dreams even when the odds were against me." Her words struck a chord, not just with the reporter but with everyone who heard them. Sophia's journey wasn't just about proving people wrong. It was about rising above bitterness and transforming pain into purpose. She began receiving letters from fans around the world, sharing stories of how her music had inspired them to pursue their passions despite adversity. Teachers wrote to thank her for motivating their students, and parents expressed gratitude for giving their children a role model they could look up to. Yet Sophia knew her work wasn't done. While she had overcome countless obstacles, there were still others like her, kids with untapped potential, waiting for someone to hand them a chance. Determined to pay it forward, she started planning something bigger, a foundation dedicated to providing musical education to underprivileged children. It would be her way of ensuring that no dream was ever abandoned because of lack of resources. As she sat in her modest bedroom that night, sketching out ideas for the foundation, Sophia felt a profound sense of peace. She had come so far, from sweeping floors to standing ovations, but the most rewarding part of her journey was yet to come. By helping others find their voices, she hoped to create a ripple effect of hope, courage, and possibility. Little did she know her legacy was already taking shape, one note, one child, one dream at a time. Months after her triumphant performance of Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto, Sophia returned to the community center once again. But this time, it wasn't to clean floors or practice in secret. She had organized a special benefit concert, inviting people from all walks of life to attend. The event was designed not only to showcase local talent, but also to raise funds for her newly established foundation, Harmony for All. Its mission was simple yet profound: to provide musical instruments, lessons, and opportunities to children who otherwise wouldn't have access to them. The day of the concert arrived and the community center buzzed with excitement. Families filled the seats, chatting animatedly as volunteers handed out programs. Among the attendees were some familiar faces, teachers, neighbors, and even a few reporters. But there were others too, ones Sophia hadn't expected to see. The same wealthy students who had mocked her months ago. They stood near the back of the room, whispering among themselves, their expressions unreadable. When Sophia stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. Clad in a simple dress, she carried herself with quiet confidence, her battered old violin, a symbol of her journey, resting in her hands. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady and warm. "This event is about more than just music. It's about giving every child the chance to dream, no matter where they come from." As she spoke, her eyes scanned the crowd, lingering briefly on the group of students near the back. Their presence unsettled her, but she pushed the thought aside and focused on the task at hand. The first half of the program featured performances by local kids, many of whom Sophia had personally mentored. Some were nervous, their bow strokes uneven, but the audience cheered them on enthusiastically. When it was Sophia's turn to play, she chose a piece that held deep meaning for her, Max Richter's On the Nature of Daylight. It was hauntingly beautiful, filled with both sorrow and hope, a reflection of her own journey. As the final note hung in the air, the room erupted into applause, tears glistening in the eyes of many listeners. Afterward, as Sophia mingled with guests during the reception, she noticed the group of students approaching her hesitantly. One of them, the same girl who had joked about her playing violin, stepped forward. "Sophia, we owe you an apology," she said, her voice trembling. "What we said to you, it was cruel. We didn't mean it, and we're so sorry." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. For a moment, Sophia felt anger flicker inside her. She remembered the sting of their laughter, the way it had cut through her like a knife. But then she looked at them, their downcast eyes, their genuine remorse, and realized something important. Holding on to bitterness wouldn't change the past. What mattered now was moving forward. Taking a deep breath, she smiled softly. "I forgive you," she said simply. "But remember this. Words can hurt, and they can inspire. Choose yours carefully." Her response left the students speechless. They nodded, gratitude shining in their eyes before quietly slipping away. Watching them leave, Sophia felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Forgiveness wasn't just for them, it was for herself. Letting go of resentment allowed her to focus on what truly mattered, helping others rise above challenges, just as she had done. As the evening drew to a close, Sophia addressed the crowd one last time. "Music has the power to heal, to connect, and to transform lives," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. Tonight, we've taken a step toward ensuring that everyone gets a chance to experience that magic. Thank you for believing in this cause, and thank you for believing in me." The applause that followed was thunderous, echoing through the halls of the very place where her journey had begun. For Sophia, it was more than validation. It was proof that her story had ignited something greater, a movement of hope and possibility. As she packed up her violin and prepared to leave, she glanced around the room, taking in the smiling faces of children, parents, and supporters. In that moment, she knew her legacy would extend far beyond her own achievements. It would live on in the dreams of those she inspired, a symphony of courage, resilience, and unwavering belief in the power of music. Years passed, and Sophia's name became synonymous with hope, resilience, and the transformative power of music. From performing in grand concert halls across the globe to mentoring young musicians, her journey had come full circle. The girl who once swept floors at the community center was now one of the most celebrated violinists in the world. Her face graced billboards, magazine covers, and television screens, but despite her fame, she remained deeply connected to her roots. The Harmony for All Foundation flourished under her leadership, reaching thousands of children in underserved communities. Music schools sprang up in neighborhoods that had never known such opportunities before, offering free lessons and instruments to anyone with a spark of interest. Sophia traveled often, visiting these schools to teach masterclasses and share her story. She loved seeing the wonder in children's eyes when they held an instrument for the first time, the same wonder she had felt all those years ago. "You don't need fancy clothes or expensive things to make music," she would tell them. "All you need is your heart." Back home, Mr. Alvarez watched his daughter's success with quiet pride. Though he still worked as a janitor, his days were brighter knowing how far Sophia had come and how many lives she was touching along the way. On weekends, he joined her at benefit concerts, cheering louder than anyone else in the audience. Their bond remained unshakable, a testament to the love and perseverance that had carried them through life's toughest moments. One evening, during a sold-out performance at Carnegie Hall, Sophia paused midway through her program to address the audience. "When I was 14, she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Someone told me I should try playing the violin as a joke. At the time, it hurt. But looking back, I realized that moment changed my life. It taught me to turn pain into purpose, doubt into determination." The crowd listened intently, hanging on her every word. "Tonight, I play not just for myself, but for every person who has ever been told they couldn't do something. This is for you." Her final piece of the evening was Beethoven's Violin Sonata No. 9, also known as the Kreutzer Sonata. It was bold, passionate, and technically demanding, a reflection of her strength and artistry. As the last note faded, into silence, the audience rose to their feet, clapping and cheering until their hands ached. For Sophia, the applause wasn't about adoration, it was about connection. She had reached people in ways words alone never could. After the concert, reporters swarmed her backstage, eager to hear more about her plans for the future. Sophia smiled thoughtfully. "I want to keep expanding the foundation," she said. "But beyond that, I want to remind people that greatness isn't defined by where you start. It's defined by how hard you're willing to work and how much love you put into what you do." In the years that followed, Sophia continued to break barriers, becoming a symbol of triumph against adversity. Yet she never sought recognition for herself. Her greatest joy came from watching others succeed. Children who had grown up in poverty now pursuing careers in music, teachers inspired to create change in their own communities, and families brought together by the universal language of melody. Every time Sophia played her violin, whether on stage or alone in her room, she remembered the long nights spent practicing in secret, the laughter that had once cut so deep, and the unwavering support of her father. Those memories reminded her of how far she'd come, and of the countless others who still needed someone to believe in them. And so, Sophia's legacy lived on, not just in the notes she played, but in the lives she touched. Through her music, And her mission. She proved that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire bright enough to light the world. In the end, her story wasn't just about a janitor's daughter who defied the odds. It was about the infinite possibilities that arise when we dare to dream, no matter where we begin.